Whoa, dude, pass me the doobie, is what a lot of people say all the time. In the past, they don't say that anymore. They just go to a store and buy it. Weed is everywhere now. But what if that joint you're toking on, that cocaine you're snorting, that fentanyl that is running through your veins right now, you did all three at once? Quite the dangerous hobby. What if those drugs are actually... How do I say this without instantly getting the entire show taking off? What if the simulation theory is correct and the only way out is to get high? Don't do that, right? You're like, oh, that's all the excuse I need. 365 days of recovery out the window. I'm breaking out of the Matrix. Wait till we do the story. It's an interesting one. And then we take a look at the story of a man who finds himself trapped in a troubling set of circumstances. He lives with his girlfriend and their young child, but he starts to realize something else inhabits this house. Something dark, something evil, something he may have invited in himself, and it's slowly tearing his world apart. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, let's knock the dust off the doors and kind of clean it up a bit, because running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command is one of our live stream. I don't even remember why we did a live stream. I think it was an anniversary show during the summer. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've done a new episode. Running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command is one of our live stream donators. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Leo. Woohoo, yeah, wee! Yeah, he's all running around, big old lion, knocking stuff over, or jump on his back. He's like, I have a bad back. We're all riding him around. He's like, I'm a human. I'm not actually a lion. Leo is going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the live streams or the merch store or the Patreon, it's totally fine. It really, really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Just some real quick housekeeping here before we start with the official episode. Yes, the show's back. We took about a 30-day break. I was on vacation. And I know everything got kind of wonky. I was supposed to run the classics the first week of the vacation. They came out the last week. You're like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then new episodes were supposed to have started already. I apologize for that. I got on an airplane to fly back home, and the airplane didn't work. Well, it did. I mean, it took off and landed. That's kind of all you wanted to do. But the flaps were stuck, so I ended up having to be stuck in an airport again. This is the second time it's happened to me overnight. I just played Dead Island 2 all night long. I was waiting for security to kick me out. It's easily the goriest video game ever made. And I'm sitting there at 3 a.m, and I'm just beating people to death with a pipe wrench in the game. Right? In the game. I wasn't ready to do that in real life, but as I was playing that game, I was like, security's gonna bust me. Like, this is the game parents think exists, and they think it's existed since the 1990s. It's the goriest game ever, and it's just close-ups of you smashing zombies, heads open, but if you're just walking by, if you just happen to be walking through an airport at 3 a.m. to get your international flight, and you see a guy hunched over going, take that. They're like, what? Why is that guy sweating over there? Why is that big smile on his face? Oh, my God, he just beat a woman to death with a rake, an electrified rake. It's a super awesome game. I got a lot of work done over my vacation, and that's the first time I've been able to do that. It was actually my most relaxing vacation ever, because I got so far ahead of work for the show that I really feel we're in a good spot, a better spot for Dead Rabbit Radio than it's been in a while. I was able to do a ton of research. I was able to do something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and that is what I call death-proof the show. So now, starting now, if you go into the show notes of each episode, there will be a link that you can then go to and find archives of every episode. I think I'm up to episode 1200 at this point, on the Wayback Internet Historian Machine, whatever it's called, the Wayback Machine Internet Archive. I have the first, so far, 1,200 episodes up on there. So if anything ever happens to me and the podcast, eventually just gets wiped out, because I always try to have it set up so as long as Patreon money was coming in, the podcast would continue to stay there. There wouldn't be new episodes. That would be, well, maybe I might be a ghost. I might finally prove life after death on my own podcast. That would be awesome. But, eventually, like, people will, why am I supporting this Patreon? This guy's been dead for 3 years. Eventually, the money would dry up and the hosting service would stop hosting the podcast and all of this work would be gone. So now we have it on the Internet Archive. So if something happens to me, you still have access to all those episodes. It'll always be in the show notes now. And I wanted to talk about why the season was... Oh, I want to say one last thing before I get started. If you don't normally listen to classic episodes, if that's not a thing that you're really even aware of, you think it's just a repeat, the last Classics episode I did about Max Kremer, I think is one of the best Classics episodes ever. So if you've never listened to a Classics episode, that's the episode you want to listen to. I think they're all good. I think they all kind of give some background information if you're into that. But the Max Kremer... or Kremer is how I normally say it, his Classics episode, I'll put it in the show notes. It's so much additional information. It's basically a whole other episode about Max Kremer. And it's probably my favorite Classics episode. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but then it's just a full on 40-minute long segment about his video game. What was it? Seagull Monster, Weregull, not to be confused with Mutant Gull. And then a little bit about a unrecorded segment so far called Welcome to Bingleberries, which is also a Max Kremer segment. So yeah, if you're in a psychopath stealing your skin and you always want more of that material, check out that Classics episode because I really think that's the best. I like them all, but I had a lot of fun recording that one. I had a lot of fun editing it. It just all around. It was really cool. But let's go ahead and get started with these new episodes. We're moving out of the Classics and into the future. Let's get this party started. Leo, I'm going to toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this rickety old chitty chitty bang bang car as Leo fires it up and takes us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to a trap house. Driving this rickety old car out through the street. We're looking for someone to sell us drugs. That's what we're doing. Now, you know what's interesting? I used to hang out with a lot of people who did a lot of drugs. And they would tell me how to find drugs. You're like, Jason, wait, no, is this just autobiographical? No. I never drove around looking for drugs, ever. But you're like, did you already have them at home? Let's not quibble with facts. I remember one day I was hanging out with a friend of mine. Let's call her Lucy. We're driving through town. This is down Sacramento. We're driving through town, and there's this dude walking down the street. I didn't even notice him, right? There's this guy walking down the street. There's a million guys walking down the street. But she goes, hey, look. And this guy's walking down the street, and he's chewing on nothing. His mouth is moving. He's like, but I see his mouth moving. It's like he's chewing on something. And she goes, that guy's Holden. That guy's got drugs. I was like, what? And she goes, that's a sign that he's selling drugs as his mouth opens and closes like that while he's walking down the street. Now, you're a hardcore drug addict. You got a bunch of needles sticking out of your arm. You're like, I don't know if that's true, Jason. I've never heard that before. Well, Lucy did a lot of drugs. Lucy did all sorts of drugs. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, that's like a sign that they're selling drugs. And if you want to buy them, you have to drive by going, rah, 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 like two Muppets talking to each other. I believe her because she's told me all sorts of stuff that turned out to be true that was drug related. And it doesn't make sense, right? It's hard to get pulled over by the cops if you're walking down the street just moving your mouth. What are the cops going to do? I guess they'll just pat him down and find a bunch of drugs on him. But it is subtle enough that if you saw a cop coming, you would just stop chewing. There's all sorts of little signs like that, right? You can tell if someone's holding, you can tell if someone's selling drugs. Now, you can go to a trap house and you can go and get your drugs there. Those are usually under observation. But again, even that, I feel like a lot of the stuff that I know about selling drugs, a lot of the stuff that I know about buying drugs comes from like 90s, early 2000s type of stuff. So nowadays, I'm sure a lot of it's different. Maybe you're on a Zoom call with your drug dealer. I don't know. I know you can just go buy weed in a lot of dispensaries and things like that, and eventually you'll just be able to buy it at a liquor store. But, you go to your drug spot, you get your drugs, you leave. Or sometimes people do drugs at the drug spot, which has always been weird to me, right? Be like, you're going to do heroin here? Look how dirty the floors are. You're on top of an unconscious person. You're like, I don't know, it's kind of comfortable. Nowadays, I'm sure it is like a Zoom call thing. Like, you pull out your phone, you go on a Facebook marketplace, and there's a gif of a guy's mouth going on, and you're like, oh, yep, he has drugs. I know people buy drugs on Craigslist and stuff like that. There's all sorts of codes that you can use. But what if, this is a very interesting conspiracy theory I ran across before I went on break. What if everything we know about drugs is, I won't say wrong, but half right or half wrong? What if everything we know about drugs, what if we only know 50% of that? You're like, what? Super confusing. You're like, oh, I'm smoking this weed, but it's 50% PCP as you're ripping your neighbor's face off. No. What if everything, let me read you this quote that this guy said. Quote, what if everything we've been taught is backwards? What if drug addiction isn't a disease, but a glitch in the simulation? A glitch that accidentally wakes up the player. Unquote. The idea, and a lot of people who do psychedelics will say this, right? Mushrooms and DMT and acid and all sorts of other stuff. Go, yeah, man, it wakes your mind up, bro. I used to think that I was just a suit. I thought I was a cog in the machine until one day I ate a bunch of mushrooms and I saw the world for what it was. You hear that experience all the time. And what this person's saying online is that, what if that actually applies to all drugs? This person online, who goes by the name Pretty When I'm Numb, they said, listen, this is their theory. They go, when you start off, a lot of times when people start off taking drugs, and again, I'm not advocating any of this. I'm not saying this conspiracy theory is true. I just find it very fascinating, just so we're very clear. As you're like reaching for your crack pipe, you're like, oh yeah, finally a Dead Rabbit Radio episode just for me. I'm not endorsing any of this at all. I just find this very interesting. The theory is, we'll put on our conspiracy caps to continue this, is that what if, when you do these drugs, a lot of times you do feel, I'm trying to figure out the right word to say here, I don't want to say better, but you might feel more, like, let's say you're smoking weed. That's always kind of a harmless one. And again, unless you're like ripping your boyfriend's eyeballs out like that one girl did. Weed psychosis is what they call it. I'll put that article in the show notes, but let's say you're smoking weed and you feel good. In fact, you feel better than you have in a long time. You're laughing louder than you used to. You see things that you never noticed before. You do feel better. And that happens a lot if you have an undiagnosed mental illness. You do Ritalin one night to stay up, to study for a test, and it turns out you have ADD. And so you don't get high, you hit a baseline. You feel for the first time what everyone else feels all the time. You feel quote-unquote normal. But to you, it's this revelation. So you do these drugs, and it sometimes seems like it's correcting errors in the coding. If we're looking at this as a simulation, and we ourselves are part of this matrix, and there's a glitch inside of you. You do these drugs, it could correct the glitch, and now you feel normal. But as you continue your drug journey, you may go past simply correcting the glitches and transcending the matrix itself. You're on these psychedelics and you're peeking through reality. You're seeing what the world truly is. You find yourself asking questions about things you didn't even know there were questions about. You've awakened. You've become enlightened. And that's an interesting conspiracy theory in and of itself. And I would argue a lot of people would say that's not a conspiracy theory. A lot of people who use psychedelics will say, no, it's spot on. Maybe not the Matrix thing, but this idea that when you do certain drugs, you see reality for what it is, and it can be a life-changing experience. Soul-changing experience. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary. I don't think that we're talking about things like trank or fentanyl or crack. I don't think those help you transcend reality. But I guess there's I guess there's no but there. Those are like the dirtiest drugs possible. But you know what I mean? Like, I guess someone who does crack all the time goes, listen, man, you don't get it. My life was miserable before I found crack. I had the worst existence ever. And then one day someone handed me a crack pipe and I smoked it. And for the very first time in my life, I could see through the matrix. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I don't believe you. Give me that crack pipe. Let me find out if this guy's telling the truth. Some drugs, I think, just hit your dopamine levels just right. I don't think you would actually see through reality. But I'm sure if you did enough crank or enough crack or whatever, you might see something that shouldn't be there. You might actually see the glitches. And actually, meth is a good example because the whole idea of seeing the shadow men. A lot of people say that's just because you've been up for 3 days. But people who do meth go, no, you don't understand. They're real. Like the shadow man and the meth experiences are so closely connected. They go, no, there's something about meth that can actually allow you to see entities that normal un-meth people can't see. I will say this, out of all of the drugs out there, I know a lot of people look at psychedelics for being able to talk to aliens or experience the world as it is supposed to be experienced instead of through the eyes, the biological eyes of a human being. You see it through your soul. Out of all the drugs, I would say that meth has the closest connection to a spiritual world. I think it's demonic. I think meth, out of all of the drugs, I think meth is the one that people use, and I think it makes it possible for them to contact demons, or for demons to contact them or to influence in their life. I think meth definitely has a spiritual component, a destructive one, but a spiritual component nonetheless. And I think that's why it makes sense that they also see shadow people, as opposed to people who are doing fentanyl, people who are doing weed, people who are snorting lines of coke. They can mess with your head, obviously. You can have mental problems if you do enough of it, or even if it's just your first time and you're not ready to it. Meth, I think, does have a spiritual component to it. Anyways, all of that is it's interesting to think about. Simulation theory, drugs are actually allowing us to see reality for what it really is. A lot of people believe that. Not even the simulation theory part, but the fact that drugs allow us to see the world. But this conspiracy theory goes one step more. This is where it gets good, right? Put down your crack pipes, ladies and gentlemen. You want to pay attention to this next part. The simulation does not want people to wake up. It can't allow that. If enough people realize it's a simulation, the simulation breaks down. The same way that if you are having a dream and you realize, oh, I'm dreaming. None of this is real. I'm just dreaming. Most of the time, the dream will either change or you'll just wake up. The dream can really only exist if you believe it's a dream. You have to do extensive training to practice lucid dreaming. Other than that, if you know it's a dream, the dream will either shift completely to something else and reset it, or you'll wake up. It can't allow you to know that it is not real. Simulation would be the same thing. If everybody realizes that none of this is real, then simulation breaks down. So, the simulation has a protective mechanism to prevent everyone from awakening. And that is what we know as the cycle of addiction. You're addicted to a drug. You need to find it somehow. You do whatever it takes, which ends up getting you isolated from your friends and your family. You're finally able to score the drug. You use the drug. It gets you by for a little bit. You start to withdraw. And then the process starts again. Sometimes with drugs like crack, this process is like every 30 minutes or every hour. It's such a potent drug. Other drugs, it may take a while for you to withdraw. But what happens is your brain starts to crave the drug so much that your thoughts are all about the drug. You end up not having enough money to buy more, so you're looking through your carpet, looking for a little nug that you can smoke or shoot up. It almost becomes animalistic at a certain point. When you become an addict, that's all you can think about. And so this is a simulation. Basically, it's a built-in defense mechanism to say, oh, you want to transcend reality? We're actually going to put you down in the dirt. You're going to act like a base animal. And so your brain, instead of trying to get another moment of enlightenment, it's just trying to feel well. It's just trying to not be sick. And so that is that cycle that the simulation kicks you into. And you go, well, Jason, that's interesting, but People don't really get addicted to mushrooms. People really don't get addicted to acid. That does make sense if you're talking about heroin or opioids or meth and all that stuff. But the drugs that really help you truly transcend reality are the psychedelics. And people really don't get addicted to those. And that's true. I mean, I guess some people could, but it doesn't seem to have such a biological addiction. Like, you get sick if you don't have mushrooms. You're all drinking cream of mushroom soup. You're like a gallon of it. You're like, this will get me through the next day. Drinking it all. Creamy mushroom goodness pouring down your throat. So the simulation created another thing for that. The simulation goes, okay, I got all of the people who are shooting enough opioids so they can see through reality. I got them taken care of. Now all they can think about is the opioids. How do I get rid of the people who are doing the psychedelics? How do I keep them under control? The simulation uses the police. According to this conspiracy theory, police officers are actually NPCs, non-player characters. They're not real. They're actually controlled by the Matrix, and they have one goal: to keep you from doing more mushrooms. I don't know about that, jeez. I got pulled over by a cop the other day. He gave me a very real speeding ticket. Why did he do that? He just walk around hippie compounds, knocking acid out of their hands and kicking away the mushrooms that are growing under their feet. Well, according to this conspiracy theory, you're wrong. That ticket's not real. You can tear it up. You don't have to pay it. Well, let me tell you about sovereign citizens after this episode. But for now, they go, no, cops are actually NPCs, and they're out on patrol for people who are breaking free of the Matrix. They're going to stop them. And if they can't stop them by, chasing them down and, grabbing them and filling their pockets, you got mushrooms in your pocket? You got mushrooms in your pocket? What? Yeah, I do. Actually, how'd you know? Oh, you were chewing. I knew you had something on you. The cops steal your mushrooms, and then you can't ascend. You're all sitting there on the street corner. You're like, oh, man, I was going to become one with the universe today. Oh, it sucks. They also, the simulation uses all of these laws as well. So it makes it so, you can't grow mushrooms, and you can't do acid in public. You can't do all of this stuff. I don't think you can't do acid in private either, but you know what I mean? The idea is a simulation. You're like, yeah, Jason's kind of breaking down a bit. There's an interesting conspiracy theory. Cops do a lot of other things other than just bust drug addicts. But the point is that the simulation's putting pressure on the drug community as a whole. They're stopping the shipment of drugs, and they're stopping the cultivation of drugs, and they're even stopping people on the street for carrying drugs around. Pretty When I'm Numb wrote this. I thought this was an interesting quote. Quote, if addicts are glitches, they're not supposed to be there. They figured a way to move through the simulation. If addicts are glitches, then cops are the firewall. Their job is to quarantine the virus before it spreads, unquote. And that would be breaking up drug houses and stopping drug dealers and things like that and keeping it out of a community. Because if it is allowed to spread unimpeded, then everyone will transcend. Or if not everyone, enough people will transcend and reality collapses in on itself. He goes on to say, kind of makes these comparisons. He goes, rehab? People talk about going to rehab? That's actually code reprogramming. So they take you and they're like, what, you're addicted to all of these drugs? We have to fix you. And your family's sitting there and they're crying and they're like, oh, Johnny boy, why'd you get addicted to drink? And you're like, yeah, the easiest person to do an intervention for. Some guy's just like, hey, you, stop using drugs. You're like, yeah, it's fine. Your arms are rotting off. You go to rehab and it's basically code reprogramming. You're just this little simulation man sitting there and they're fixing you. Don't do drugs. You're like, yeah, it's a pretty good idea. I don't know. I didn't think about that before my arms fell off. They give you a little diploma. You can't hold it. You're like, and just tie it around my neck. And then you move on. That's actually code reprogramming. It's the funniest thing is that this is one of those conspiracy theories that I find interesting. And at the same time, I disagree with pretty much most of it. Listen, I've had a lot of my family members have had serious drug problems, and I have one of my family members who works in the rehab community. He battled his demons, and now he's helping others do the same thing. I think rehab's awesome. I think it's great that we have a society that goes, we're not giving up on you. This is your 18th time not sticking to the plan. We're not giving up on you. I find that very fascinating as a species that we do that. I don't know if other species do that. I don't know if, like, a wolf pack, there's always one wolf that's, like, going out and, like, killing extra chickens, but only eating them himself. They're like, hey, Larry, you know, you got all these feathers sticking out of your mouth. You're easily a chicken heavier than the rest of us. Like, you're not able to fail in animal societies over and over and over again. You'll be killed or ostracized. But humans, we do say, let's try this one more time. So I disagree with the fact that rehab is code programming. I would hate for someone to listen to this podcast and go, you know what? That's right. My family, they're just a bunch of bums. They're just a bunch of bums stuck in the Matrix. Jason's right. I'm going to do all the drugs that I can find tonight. No, I'm not saying that at all. Fascinating conspiracy theory, but I disagree with a lot of the core tenets of it. But I will say this. Again, very, very interesting. I have always wondered why every single drug, whether it's man-made or natural, every single drug has side effects. You don't have a side effect when you eat a walnut. You don't have a side effect when you drink milk. You don't have a side effect when you pick up a daisy and chew on it. I mean, it's not delicious, but you don't either lose a limb or spiral out into uncontrollable madness or get really, really sick to your stomach. I mean, obviously, if you're allergic to walnuts and milk, you might. But my point is that why is it every single drug has side effects? I've always wondered that. I don't get it. I don't get it why they can't invent a perfect painkiller. With as much as we know about chemistry and as much we know about the human brain, that's what Vicodin was supposed to be. They said, this is the perfect painkiller and it is not addictive. And it turned out not to be true. And it seems like no matter what we do, everything we create is either addictive or poisonous, or it does something to our mind or something to our soul. And even the drugs found in nature, like you can do mushrooms, but if you do them too much, it's going to melt your brain. I'm talking about like copious amounts of them, like handfuls in a day. And at the very least, it's going to make you extremely sick. You're mentally, I'm fine. But I wish I wasn't. I wish I was in a catatonic state. I ate 4 pounds of psychedelic mushrooms. Oh, my tummy hurts. I mean, they have like those ayahuasca trips, right? They're like, here, drink this potion and you'll have all these psychedelic experiences. Also, you're going to vomit for 4 hours. So why is it that every drug does seem to have really, really serious and sometimes deadly side effects? It doesn't make sense because so many other things in the world don't. You've never heard someone go, oh man, I really want a donut. I heard a lot about donuts. They're pretty good. That's what I hear. And you're like, yeah, they're delicious. And they go, yeah, but I can't have one because sometimes if you eat a donut, you vomit for 4 hours. I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't exist. There's millions of things in the world that you can consume that don't cause you to have horrible side effects, but every drug does. And you go, well, Jason, if you ate enough donuts, you would be sick. If you ate enough of them, and I know, like, there's variations of it. If you smoke one joint, you probably won't rip your neighbor's eyeballs out, but you'll never do that no matter how many donuts you eat. You can't tell I'm getting hungry for a donut. I was like, oh, man, sure was a lot of work ripping my neighbor's eyeballs out. I need a donut. You can eat every single donut in the world. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But you can eat 12 dozen donuts. And the worst thing that's going to happen to you is your tummy's going to hurt. But if you space them out, you're not going to throw up. Do I hear a live stream challenge, anybody? You're like, Jason, how many is 12 dozen? What's 12 times 12? Is it like 124 or something? I argue I could eat 124 donuts in a day. On camera. But here's the thing. If I smoked 124 joints, or if I ate 124 magic mushrooms, or if I had 124 tabs of acid, that's not going to be a live stream, if anything. You'll be happy I did it on a live stream, so you can call the medics. Why is it that drugs always have serious side effects? I've never understood that. That does seem to be some sort of mechanism that nature itself puts into the drugs. I actually do believe that part of the conspiracy theory. I'm not a big proponent of the simulation theory, and I am a big proponent of going to rehab and taking care of drug addiction problems and things like that, but I've always wondered why drugs seem to have these serious... I mean, imagine if magic mushrooms... I know now they're doing a lot of microdosing things, and they're trying to get around some of these more serious side effects, but imagine if magic mushrooms had 0 side effects. You could never do too many. You would never be so oblivious and paranoid that you think you're an orange, and if anyone touches you, you'll turn into orange juice. It's a very common urban legend regarding drugs, psychedelics. Imagine if you could do as many mushrooms as you wanted, and the only thing that would happen is you would see reality for what it was. You would become one with nature. You'd become one with the universe, and there were 0 side effects. People would do them all the time. So they do have side effects, so most people don't. And then you do have cops that also make it hard to get. But if they invented a drink right now, turns out that if you took a Coke and a Pepsi and poured half Coke and half Pepsi in a single glass and drank it, and you would start tripping balls with 0 side effects, people would do it. People would be curious about it, see if they could do it. Bored, right? Obviously, the executives at Coke and Pepsi would be like, what? How did we not figure that out? If it had 0 side effects, people would start doing it. People would start drinking these drinks. And they would be kicking back after work, and they would see the world for what it truly is. And that's where part of me thinks you would have the government intervene and go, no, that you can't do that. We're going to regulate sales of Coke and Pepsi. If you mix them together, that's actually illegal. And people would go, well, why? It's not causing any trouble. There's 0 side effects. I do believe that at that point, the government would say, yeah, there are. And they would just start kind of making stuff up or exaggerating certain stories. There's a bit of scaremongering around drugs as well. So again, it kind of plays into this conspiracy theory. I know a lot of people who do drugs listen to this podcast, and they're probably like, Jason, you don't know what you're talking about. You actually can eat handfuls of mushrooms. I don't know. If someone tried to convince me of that, I'd be like, well, I want to see you do that. You're going to be handcuffed to the bed because I don't want you to eat my face, but I don't think you can eat a pound of psychedelic mushrooms in one go. And if you can, I will eat 124 donuts to show you up. No. It's fascinating stuff. Why do drugs have side effects? All of them. Is it made up? Is it scaremongering by the government? Is it a safety mechanism to keep us from indulging in things that we would use to escape reality? You don't have to have a simulation for the universe to have an intelligence behind it. And it may go, can't do that. You can't keep seeing through reality. That's not good for you or reality. I wonder if anyone's ever made the connection like the fruit in the Garden of Eden was a mushroom. And that is what Eve ate. The snake's like, yo, eat this big old mushroom, and you'll know the difference between good and evil. And she eats it, and she's tripping balls. And she's like, yo, Adam, you gotta come over here, eat this mushroom. He's like, what? She's like, just eat it, man. Next thing they know, they're making clothes out of leaves and walking out of Eden. Forever banished. Because they ate magic mushrooms. Is that a conspiracy theory? It just popped in my head. I'm sure someone believes it somewhere out there. Also, to wrap this story up, it went long. You know what's funny? When I started doing this episode, I go, dude, I really want to return to the shorter episodes. When I was doing those classics, the episodes are like 29 minutes. The whole episode. And I go, I want to do that again. I will say that Pretty When I'm Numb did admit after they'd written this whole thing, because they posted this online, a lot of people go, you don't know what you're talking about, you're kind of a dummy, blah, blah, blah. Pretty When I'm Numb did admit afterwards, yeah, I was high on meth when I wrote that. And everyone just goes, well, yeah, that's what expected from a meth head to write something like that. But again, that actually kind of fits his hypothesis. And that someone who wasn't on meth wouldn't have written this. But he smoked just enough that he was able to see through what is and see what really hides beyond the code. Only a man with enough meth coursing through his veins could have realized. Not only is the simulation theory correct, but the only way to break out of it is dangerous or against the law. The simulation itself has created these safety mechanisms to keep us from looking through reality. I mean, here's the thing, when I say it like that, it's like I can't end the episode like, you're like, that's a good point, Jason. Maybe I've never done a drug in my life, but after this episode, I'm going to walk down the street looking for people chewing air. Be like, one drug, sir, one drug. Whatever you have, it's time for me to cross through the looking glass. I mean, it's an interesting conspiracy theory. I'm not advocating it at all. Fascinating stuff, though. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so you know what? This is kind of nuts because, again, I wanted this episode to be short. And we're already sitting at around 40 minutes. So I don't have time to do... The story I want to do about the succubus is really, really good. Yeah, let's see if I got something short here. If I don't have something short, I will give you a little bit of a tidbit for something coming up. Let me take a look here, though. Yeah, we got some good stuff coming up. I don't think I have anything super short for you guys, though, right now. I will say this. I'll tease you with this. I don't know when the episode's coming out, so it's like a tease for the future. I was recently doing some research. There was a guy telling stories online, which, you know, most of my research. He started talking about his own life in Australia. And if I remember correctly, it was like a ghost story. And then he goes, oh, I got another story too, which usually makes me suspicious. Usually makes me suspicious when people have a bunch of odd stories kind of back to back. Especially if there's stuff I've never really seen before. And so he told the first story and he goes, oh yeah, no, I got something else. And he posted this bizarre story about a man who had the head of a dingo. The story took place in Australia. Like, what? How would he even know what a dingo looked like? Man had a head of a dingo and he's walking around the beach and some weird dingo-related things happened. And I don't do this very often, but I've started doing this more. And this is the reason why I don't do it, by the way. But anyways, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm a paranormal researcher. I was wondering if you can give me some more information about one of the stories that he had written. I messaged him. And probably within 20 minutes, I got a message from a completely unrelated account. And it goes, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That man's always spinning tall tales. He doesn't know what he's talking about. None of it ever happened. Leave it all alone. I was like, what? What in the world did I just stumble onto? Now, here's the thing. This is the thing. Leo, we'll have you back for tomorrow's episode, but I was looking at that and I go, what? Now, I thought, obviously, right, you can have more than one account. This is on Reddit, so you can have a million sock puppets. I do, right? If I ever see something that I don't like, but I don't want it tied to my account, I have another account and I go, that's terrible. I'm just a troll. It's not, I'm not fighting the good fight. I'm just seeing stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a troll to this guy, but I don't want to trace back to my podcast. So it could be that. But anyways, the guy had posted these stories. I think I found them, if I remember correctly, like a couple months after he posted them. So it wasn't like he had set up this ARG trap. Who would post something online and go, oh, you know what, I'm going to trick a paranormal researcher? Or really anybody, but I don't know who else would privately message people for more information on a story a couple months old. I go, did he just set up, does he have a separate account? And when he gets messages to his first account, he plays an old timer from town saying, that boy doesn't know anything that's going on. Or is this dude right? Are his stories true? And it is this town, because if I remember correctly, I'm not giving a bunch of information away, because honestly, I'm kind of wondering if they can find the podcast. I'll do a full segment on it in the future, but I thought, what if, like, this is this small town in Australia, and they found out that he posted this stuff on Reddit 4 months ago, or however long ago it was. And they're like, Jimmy, what are you doing? Why are you talking about the dingo man down by the beach? And Jimmy's like, oh, what? I didn't know you guys had Reddit. I thought you guys were a bunch of old people at a bar drinking. No, we're the town elders, and we also have Reddit. We have a Zoom call coming up. We got a big shipment of drugs coming in. We're also drug dealers. We hide the drugs in the kangaroo's pouch, and they hop across the country. It's best. Best delivery system ever. Jimmy, why'd you be telling people about the dingo head down by the beach? Because at that point, you just delete the Reddit posts. Like, if I was a town elder and someone was posting stuff I didn't want, I'd go, dude, take that offline. Take that off the internet. Why'd you post that? But it's so weird that I emailed him and then I got an email from a completely different guy being like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's all fables, all made up. He signed it. DM. And I was like, does that happen to stand for Dingo Man? He's like, how'd you figure it out? So the paw print, he signs his emails with a paw print. I didn't know you could sign an email. Well, anyways, yeah, we'll be covering that story coming up. Honestly, I don't know really don't know what to make of it. I really don't. It's probably fake because I was already super suspicious about the stories themselves. But at the same time, I go, this makes me more curious. Could be a troll. That's the most likely thing, right? But we'll cover that in a future episode. So there's a little teaser. I didn't want to end with just me encouraging uncontrolled drug use, which again, that's not what I'm doing. I just thought it was interesting. Conspiracy theory. But we have run out of time for today. I really want to avoid doing that. But see, sometimes I just like talking about the subject and I kind of have a lot to say about it. I thought that first segment was going to be like 10 minutes max. But it was 30 or 40 minutes. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're back. We are back, baby. We are back. We'll have new episodes tomorrow as well. But we're going to wrap this one up. Make sure your doors are locked. Make sure the Dingo Man doesn't show up. I don't think we're going to do that episode tomorrow, but I should rush it. All the notes are ready to go. Maybe I'll do it later this week. I have to set up the first story and stuff like that, but tomorrow we'll do the succubus story, which is really good. We got a bunch of great content coming out. Again, I did so much research, so much stuff ready to go. So it was a good vacation, and I'm glad you guys, were patient with me because it was kind of crazy on the release side, but I feel great, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to have you back. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be your email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a